Okay, fourth time's the charge. Charm. Okay, let's see. Alrighty, my voice is going out. I've been doing this, trying to get this section in. Oh well. Okay, anyway. So we're going to do this next section. Meter, centimeter, avatar size, and for earlier versions of Maya. Okay, so, we already have it off here. Okay, so a little bit of background information. When Linden Lab was first creating the avatar, they did it accidentally in centimeter units. Or I guess maybe they figured they would just convert it to meters, But anyway, they ended up making the avatar extremely tiny. I'm pretty sure that what probably happened was that the default units, working units in Maya, are centimeters, and if you come here to set preferences and come over here to settings, by default, the working units are always centimeter. You can change it to meter, but with Maya Star, do not change it to meter. You'll mess things up. You got to leave it in centimeter. So when they made the avatar, they made it actually very tiny, and so that in and of itself has some issues, but we're kind of stuck with it now. So anyway, if you want to work on the avatar bigger, because sometimes when you're working in here and you got mesh clothing and the vertices are really close together and you're trying to click on a particular one, it can get very, very difficult because it is so tiny. And you'll notice that's probably also why when you res something that you've created in Maya and you res it on the ground, that it comes in very, very tiny. And that's the reason why. If you make something to the scale, the avatar here, which is the default size of the avatar that Linden Lab created, things come in extremely small. Okay, so that's why I created this. If you click meter scale, it makes the avatar 100 times bigger, making it the size it actually is in Second Life. As you can see, the grid gets really tiny down there. That's because the avatar is 100 times bigger. Okay, there's some advantages to working with the avatar bigger. Like I said, you can zoom in really close and get to places that normally would be almost impossible to get to with your camera. Also, soft select works much better with the avatar bigger. For making changes to your mesh clothing, but also rigging. It's a little bit easier to weight paint. I don't necessarily myself find a big difference between the bigger and the smaller when weight painting, but other people have told me that they find it easier to weight paint on a larger avatar versus a tinier one. And when you click on meter scale, it doesn't change the working units of the does not change the working units. Working units stay the same at centimeter. And like I said, leave it at centimeter. If you change it from centimeter, you'll start messing things up in Maya Star. So leave it centimeter. Okay, and you can flip back and forth even after you've rigged your clothes. You can flip back and forth between meter scale and centimeter scale even while you're painting the weights. So just click back to centimeter. What happens is in the outliner, when you click meter scale, is a locator is created. It's named Avatar Skeleton, and the M pelvis bone is parented to that locator, and then the locator's scale is changed to 100. That makes the skeleton scale up 100 times, but it doesn't actually change the value of the skeleton. So it doesn't actually change the translates or anything like that. So you can totally rig to the avatar being big like this and export out, and it will be just fine when you export out your DAE. So there's no problem, and you can switch back and forth between the two. You can rig it big and make your clothes to this size and rig it to this size, and then you can switch back to centimeter, and it will shrink down your clothes back to centimeter. This clothes will scale up and down as the skeleton scales up and down. If we were to detach it from that skeleton, the clothes would pop up huge again if you made them big to fit the meter scale avatar. you know, but like I said, you just flip back and forth, no problem. Okay, so that's it. That's easy. That's the simple one. Now for the harder of the two. Okay, now this is for earlier versions of Maya, 2009 and older. And even 2009 might not have this issue. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, when I was back testing this, I found was something with 2009. And indeed, that was the year 2009 and older. Versions of Maya have to be concerned with this. 2009 and older have to be concerned with this because if you use the default DAE exporter, if you use for 2009 and newer, if you were to use the, let's go to the plugin manager. Oh, come on. Go to plugin manager. And you were to be using the built-in fbxmaya.mll to export out your DAE files. Because of the way Collada, because of the way Fitted Mesh was set up with these weird bone rotations, it messes up the FBX. Now, like I said, this is only for 2009 and older. So if you have a newer version, if you have 2010 and newer, you could completely ignore this section of the video. Pretty much. There's one small section that deals with bone, skin cluster bone names that you might find interesting and useful. But anyway, we'll get to that. Okay, so anyway, so the FBX Maya .ml plugin for exporting out DAE files for 2009 and older has sort of a bug in it. When it exports out the DAE as if all the bones have rotations of 0, and so therefore when you wear your fitted mesh in Second Life that you've exported out with the DAE, it becomes distorted. So I have another video that shows how to use, for older versions of Maya, that shows what you have to do if you're going to use the FBX Maya.mll 2009 and older versions of Maya. I have a video just for that, I believe. Hope I did. Pretty sure I made a video that shows what you need to do. Now, my advice to anybody who has 2009 and older, use OpenCollada. If you use OpenCollada, then you don't have to worry about this at all, you know. But there are some people who may want to really use the Maya.mll. And I don't know if you export it out as an FBX and use the FBX standalone converter. If that will, I haven't tried that. That may not have a problem. Because some people do that. Some people export out as an FBX file and then use the converter, the free standalone converter, to convert it to a DAE from there. I'm like, why do that if you don't have to? But that might be an option for older users of Maya. I just use the OpenCollada. It works just fine. And you don't have to worry about this section at all, about rotating the bones. What these do is that when you click on this, if you're using an older version of Maya, is, let's come down here to the chest bone. Where's the chest bone? There it is. That's one of the bones that gets rotated. That's weird. Okay, now let's go to the attribute editor. Okay, now by default, the joint orientations are 0, 0, and 0, because all newer versions of Maya, which 90% of you have out there, 99% of you who are using MayaStar have out there, these are the correct orientations. So by default, when you activate the avatar, it comes in with the skeleton the way it should be, and it gets exported out just fine. Okay. So when you click on newer versions of Maya, for older versions of Maya, it does a few things. It rotates some bones to be 0, 0, 0 and all that kind of stuff. And then when you click collision bones, rotations, and I click the chest bone, you see it rotates the bone -10 degrees, which is what it is in Second Life. So that's what that does. Resets the bones back to 0, opposite direction, +10 instead of -10. Reset skeleton back for 2010 and newer. That resets the skeleton back to 2010 and newer. Okay, if you click on the chest bone again, see, when these bell scripts do different things. You know, when I click on that, it resets it and it deselects the chest bone and selects the end pelvis. So if you notice, for 2010 and newer, which is what the skeleton is set for when you activate Maya Star, male or female, you'll click on the chest bone and you'll notice that this joint orientation is -10. And that's the way it should be for all newer versions of Maya, and anybody who's using an open Collada for 2009 and older to export out your DAE files. And so this is only if somebody is using 2009 and older versions of Maya who want to use the FBX Maya.mll plugin provided by Autodesk, but only for those older versions. Newer versions of Maya, you can use that plugin with no problem. You don't have to do any of this. Okay, just want to make sure that's clear. So when you click on this, what it does, remember, the default, the chest, the joint orientation is -10 for the chest, for the joint orientation. When you click on this, it changes the joint orientation of the chest to 0. Okay, that's what that does. Reset rotations. Then when you click on SL rotations, it actually rotates the chest. That's so that you can see what's going to happen to your mesh in Second Life. And it's all part of this process. Like I said, there's that video that anybody who's using an older version of Maya 2009 and older, you want to go back and watch that video. And that's only if you're going to be using the plugin FBX Maya. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. That's only if you're going to be using this version of the plugin, and only if you're using 2009 and older. 2010 and newer, like I said, totally ignore this section of the video. Your plugin, you can use the FBX Maya plugin just fine. You don't have to do anything. It works just fine. Okay. So, anyway, so that's just what these things do. They set the rotation back to 0. Opposite rotation, which is a part of the process, that if you're using that plugin, like I said, if I were you and you was using 2009 and older, just use the Open Collada plugin. Then you don't have to worry about any of this. And you can use the default skeleton just as it is activated. You basically are using the 2010 and 9 and newer skeleton settings if you're using Open Collada for the 2009 and older. And also if you're using Open Collada for the 2009 and newer. You can totally ignore these things. The only thing that might be of interest in here, and of course this resets it back to the 2010 and newer skeleton, which is what the default is when you activate the avatar, you know, the male or female avatar. It gets the 2010 and newer skeleton automatically. So like I said, if you're using an older version of Maya 2009 and older, do yourself a favor, get the Open Collada and just use that. Then you don't have to worry about doing all these weird bone rotations and all that kind of stuff. The only thing in here that might be of interest to everyone under some circumstances, if you want to know what bones are in you're used for the mesh that you've rigged, okay? If you want to know which bones are in there, what you do is you open up your script editor. I would clear out the history just so it's not so cluttered. You select your mesh that is rigged. You come over here and you click Skin Cluster Bone Names. Okay, and this tells you every bone that's in the skin cluster that is rigged to. Okay, and you can see that this upper torso mesh right here. These are the bones that it's rigged to. You know, so that can come in handy. And if you're using OpenCollada, especially on an older version of Maya, 2009 and older, that's a part of the process of when you export out to OpenCollada, is you have to get the skin bones that are in the skin cluster, and you have to highlight them, and you can right mouse click on it and click copy to get those, and then you open up the OpenCollada DAE and you paste in this, and like I said, I have a video for that, to show how to do that for the OpenCollada. At least I hope I do. I'm gonna have to go back and make sure I actually made one. But that's for only OpenCollada users, and only OpenCollada users who are using 2009 and older. Okay. So, but from time to time you may want to say, gee, did I add what are the bones in my skin cluster? You know, if you're exporting it out and you're getting an error when you're trying to upload it to the DAE, the Second Life, and it's giving you an error. Fitted mesh, all fitted mesh have to have all of the normal bones, you know, all the M bones in the skin cluster. And I have that video that shows how to export out DAE. So I do have a video that shows that. And that will be a later. So that's where this comes in. Okay. And then, like I said, this gets the skeleton back to the default skeleton settings for 2010 and newer. Alrighty, so that's this video. And in the next video I'll go over these.